Good evening, Democrats and friendly unaffiliateds. I'm Vicki Shea. I'm the chair of the Farrington Democratic Club. We are live in the gathering place and we're also on Zoom. We're going to go right to our first guest because she can only be with us until 7:15. On the Zoom screen should be, and probably is, U.S. Congresswoman Valerie Foushee. She used to be our representative and then our senator in the North Carolina General Assembly. Why is there music? Okay, whoever is playing music by mistake on their cell phone, if they could turn it off, that'd be great. Anyway, Representative Foushee used to be our representative, and then she was our senator in the North Carolina General Assembly. And now our part of Chatham County will be in her district for the 2024 congressional election. So we're counting on her being our representative beginning in 2025. So Representative Foushee, thank you so much for zooming in. Please tell us whatever you think we should know.
Good evening, and thank you all for allowing me to appear in this format. As most of you know, and you've heard, I am Congresswoman Valerie Foushee, representing North Carolina's 4th Congressional District, which currently includes all of Alamance, Durham, Orange, Person, and Granville counties, and a small part of Caswell County. What some of you may not know is that when we return in January of
Representative Foushee, we think you're on mute, or
No,
else
I'm
we
not.
just can't hear you.
I am not
We
on
see
mute.
your lips moving. We're working on it on our end. She
Yeah, I'm
says
not
she's
on
not
mute.
on mute. This is the brand new fancy system. So like many brand new fancy systems, apparently they're hearing you online, our Zoom audience. My sister has said that she could hear her in the Zoom. Okay, people are walking towards this new little person trying to turn off the music and turn you on.
Okay.
Can you say something, Representative Foushee?
I can start again if you'd like.
You need to take it off Pandora. People are saying. Could you try?
Hello. Are we better?
Okay, one more time. Representative Foushee,
Hello.
please.
Hello. Hello.
We got you.
Okay. So what I was saying to the Zoom audience is that in 2025, I look forward to again representing Chatham County, well, parts of Chatham County in the U.S. Congress. And I apologize for not being able to stay on longer, but I had a previous meeting that also started at 7 o'clock. I'll be frank, Congress is probably more dysfunctional now than it's ever been. I'm hoping that that's not because I arrived, but it's obvious that Republicans, their infighting has brought most of the legislative process to a dead halt. The extreme MAGA Republicans have hijacked the legislative process, causing an inability to pass critical bills to fund the government. Bills that would provide vital international aid to our allies overseas and continue the important work that the American people sent us to Congress to do. While Republicans continue to fight amongst themselves, House Democrats are united and are committed to continuing the fight to codify Roe v. Wade, to address the urgent climate crisis, to bring student loan relief. You've seen that the president has done what he could by executive order, but we believe that Congress has a role to play. And as soon as we can get to some serious budget discussions, we're hoping to bring this legislation forward. We are also working to pass gun violence prevention legislation and to continue to fight for voting rights, which is something that you all know that I've done since entering the General Assembly. Personally, my first year in Congress, I've been honored to have been chosen to serve on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, serving as the vice ranking member on railroads, pipelines, and hazardous materials on that subcommittee. I was also chosen to serve on the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee, and I am serving as the ranking member of Investigations and Oversight Subcommittee. In my first year, I have joined the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force, the Pro-Choice Caucus, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and the New Dems, all of this with a focus on advancing legislation that can benefit the people in this district. I am so humbled and honored to be with you tonight, and I appreciate you all having me. I want to thank you all for everything you do, particularly for getting out information, hearing from candidates, and making sure that your voices are heard as we strive to represent you to the best of our abilities. We need you on the front lines to bring Democrats home to victory in November. We do have a few moments. I'd like to take some time to answer a couple of questions if there are any. We're getting one.
Can you tell us what legislative accomplishment you've been involved in the last 12 months that you're proudest of?
I didn't hear all of that.
What legislative accomplishment you're proudest of?
I think with, you know, the fact that we've not been able to pass any legislation as Democrats that we brought forward, I'm happy that we as Democrats have worked hard to ensure that the government has not shut down. We've done that 3 times in 4 months. Just last week, we voted, and it would not have happened without Democrat votes, to avoid another government shutdown. And until we can get a focus on legislation and not all of these performative acts that we're getting from Republicans, we're not going to be able to do much else. I think you all know that the 118th Congress passed some really landmark legislation that we've not been able to fund. I mean, it's been enacted, but we've not been able to appropriate funds for the Inflation Reduction Act. We've gotten money out the door for the bipartisan infrastructure law. You see that on your highways and byways, but a lot of the money that could be going directly to our districts is not getting there because we haven't approved a budget. I think that we went through the process of the community project funding, where each member was given the opportunity to solicit projects, score those projects, and move those projects forward for funding. But again, that has not occurred because we are still working with continuing resolutions rather than enacting an appropriations bill so that we can indeed fund the government. But again, we have not had a shutdown. As you probably know, another shutdown is looming for March 3rd and March 8th. So I'm hoping that when we return next week, we will really get to work in earnest to make sure we pass the remaining appropriations bills. There are 12 of them. We have only passed 5. And so they have not been taken up in the Senate yet.
Here comes the last question.
What is the most surprising thing that you have learned from your first year as a member of Congress?
I think the most surprising thing was that Speaker McCarthy was willing to do almost anything to become Speaker. And as you well know, he was even willing to allow that conference to be able to bring up a vote to oust the Speaker, just one person was able to do that. And subsequently, he lost his seat there. To have that kind of situation where it looms over all of us, whether or not we're going to be able to come together to negotiate, to make sure that we are discussing, deliberating, and indeed passing legislation that needs to move forward so that we can address the needs of this nation. To be in a situation where we are defending democracy in 2 other parts of the world and not being able to address that funding, understanding that we have an obligation to defend democracy such that we can ensure that that's what we're about, y'all. For us to not discuss those in earnest and to hold this whole country hostage while we're trying to work on the situation at the border, at the southern border at the same time. These games that we play in terms of we'll not consider this unless you consider that, or we're not going to pass this bill unless you ensure that there is no federal funding going for abortion, or we're not going to hear what needs to be done by way of child nutrition or student loan debt or housing, any of those things, because we want to ensure that women cannot choose what they want to do with their bodies as it relates to reproductive freedom. I don't think that I realized that extreme MAGA Republicans were so entrenched in that whole Trumpism type of thing that they will not even hear what the real needs of this country are. And I think what we're seeing is that, I hate to say it, but a lot of the things that we saw in the North Carolina General Assembly over the last 10 years made it seem like North Carolina was a playbook for all of these things. And now it's in reverse. What we're seeing with the federal government is trickling down to the North Carolina General Assembly simply because they have supermajorities in both chambers. I think as much as I thought, because there was a slim majority in the House and that we had a majority in the Senate, that we would be able to some real extent negotiate bills such that whether we got all, I mean, we knew we weren't going to get everything we wanted, but certainly, you know, some things are just reasonable. Some things are just. And some things just seem to be the right things to do. And that just isn't the case with how we're operating in the U.S. House of Representatives right now.
We are so glad we're going to have you back again.
Thank you. And let's hope that, you know, one of the things that distresses me also is that there are moderate Republicans, or there are true conservative Republicans, y'all, who are willing or who want to do the right thing. Let's just make sure that if you don't hear anything else from me, understand that they do exist. But the way things are now with everybody going to their corners, extreme corners. I mean, you know, there's some of that on the Democratic side, but certainly not to the extent that there is on the Republican side. And, you know, I talk to Republicans on a regular basis, one-on-one. We have great conversations. There are times when they share with me what they would like to see. But in order for them to go back to their districts and win primaries, they have to stick to the party line. And if you take a minute to just Google which Republicans are leaving the House who are not running for re-election, you'll see that they are the ones who are the most moderate. And many of them have said to me, you know, it's not what it used to be, and it's not worth it anymore. So I'm sorry to be that I don't have more positive news, but I will tell you, I do believe that we will take back the House. And I do believe that Democrats are working really, really hard to recruit and resource people who are willing to step up and be willing to come to Congress and do the work. There is a slim majority on the Republican side. Now, we do believe that we can overcome that. Hopefully, we can hold the Senate and return President Biden such that we'll have that opportunity. We'll have that opportunity for you to hold us accountable for making sure that your needs are met. So again, thank you. And I look forward to talking with you all again, hopefully in person.
Thank you so much. You're turning it off, right? Okay. Okay. Well, we are flexible. Let's see. So now coming back to our session, The Gathering Place, this session is also being recorded and it will be posted on our website in all of its glory. And the website is farringtondems.org. And there'll be more on there than there was in here, so that's good. So if you are in the room and and you have a question, if we get to have enough time for questions, please wait for the microphone. We have an identified person to take the microphone around so that everybody can comfortably hear the questions, because all of us have aging ears. No matter what stage of aging they're at, they're still aging. And the people watching online can type their questions into the chat. Let's see. I want to say just a little bit before introducing our other candidates. Early voting starts on February 15th, and you all have the Democratic ballot that lists all of the Democratic candidate. And you'll see that there's nobody local on there. And that's because none of our local candidates has a primary opponent. So, but they still are going to, their names are going to be on the ballot in November, and they each have to get at least one vote in order to be elected. What some of you already know, and we're going to put it again in our newsletter, even though early voting starts on the 15th, we're asking as many people as possible to vote on Sunday, the 25th. The reason being that we've had to do a lot of advocacy to get Sunday voting hours. Yet again, this year, there was a contention and it had to go up to the state because it wasn't a unanimous decision. So if anybody can vote on Sunday, the 25th, that all the early voting places, of which there are 5 in the county, they'll all be open from 12 to 3. So if you can just think about that, and if that works into your schedule, that would be very helpful. Okay, so there are 2 Democratic candidates for 2 open seats on the Chatham County Board of Commissioners. So they're not running against each other. They each are going to have a seat. And then there are 4 Democratic candidates for 4 open district court seats in the Orange Chatham Judicial District. And all of those are here, except that Judge Cabe was not feeling well tonight and decided to spare everybody whatever is going around. So let's see. So we have developed 2 unique questions and 1 universal question for each of them as a way of getting to know them better and getting their perspectives on various public policy issues, and to introduce themselves, all of which they can do within 5 minutes because there's 6 of them. And so 5 minutes each, all of a sudden we're heading towards the polls in New Hampshire closing. We'd like each of them to take about 5 minutes, and that should leave us some time for questions from the audience using the microphone. Okay, so the county commissioner candidates are coming in the order of the number of their district. So the first one coming from District 1, let me back up and say, we vote countywide. We don't vote by district. So no matter what district they live in, you can vote for both of them, or what we live in. Okay. So Karen Howard is our first candidate. Hi, y'all. The question is, because she's been on the board of commissions forever, what are you most proud of in government?
Oh, there's a lot that I am deeply proud of. I think one of the things that really jumps out for me is the Chatham Promise. And if you don't know what Chatham Promise is, it is our promise to students that graduate from our public schools that they will get 2 years of paid tuition at our community college. And the reason that resonates with me so is that we have a significant number of residents in Chatham County for whom that next level of income was inaccessible, right? The ability to reach beyond what their parents had done or what their parents knew about was something that was available to everybody else. And so for us to create a landscape where kids can be in middle school and in high school and start thinking about the next step and the jobs that were coming, and the jobs that are coming are incredible. The jobs that those kids are going to have access to are going to lift families out of poverty and create generational opportunities for a lot of residents in Chatham County. And so when we say that education really is the access to the next level of wealth and sustain good incomes and meaningful employment, this is how you ensure that that happens. And so I'm very proud of the fact that we have done that, and that lots of Chatham County students, particularly Hispanic and Black students, are taking advantage of it. And that has not historically been the case in Chatham.
Next question, what do you wish people understood better about the Board of Commissioners?
One, it's not always fun. I know it looks like fun. But no, I think that the thing that that I learned after I was on the board, first of all, running and governing are very different. And most importantly, we do not govern alone. And we are lucky in Chatham that we have access to incredible people that serve on our advisory boards and committees. But the goal of a commissioner and the goal of serving in that role is to serve the needs of a community. And you don't know what the needs of the community are unless you're reaching out to them, unless you're getting opportunities for their input, unless you're having them bring their expertise, their experience, their knowledge, their skills to the work that we're doing. And so, I think we have a wealth of that in Chatham County. But I have been very impressed with and very surprised by the fact that so many of our citizen advisory boards play such a critical role in how the work gets done. And we have an incredible staff. I also underestimated the intellectual and experiential skill of a Chatham County staff and of public servant staff. And they have been able to, serving 5 bosses cannot be easy. But they very often take the wild and crazy ideas that we throw at them and come back with something 10 times better. And that really speaks, I think, highly to the people that we have working for us in Chatham.
And this is the universal question, so we all know it's coming. What gives you hope for the future of our community and our country?
Young people. I often hear people talk about young people and millennials and make jokes. There are kids. So if we didn't do a great job, then us. But I'm going to say young people give me such hope. They expect a world that is kinder, a world that includes everybody, a world where we don't categorize people by the way they look, the way they love, the way they dress. And my own children call me on that repeatedly. And as much as I think that I'm open-minded and visionary and 21st century, they constantly remind me of my responsibility to not quit now. I often say, I still say it, you guys are going to have a big problem with this planet if someone don't do something quickly. And they say, as long as you're here, you're in it. As long as you don't get to cop out. They're making really thoughtful choices about whether they have kids. Not something that I assumed one had kids and I ended up with 6. But they are so thoughtful, they're so kind, and it's not just them. I go to schools, I volunteer in schools, and I hear it everywhere. I hear young people, and I'm not saying every young person is perfect, but I think that we are, in fact, raising generations of young people that are going to be ready to take up the mantle and will be less tolerant of that's not possible, of the, we can't do that. And they will find ways to do things. And they are already coming up with incredible ways of addressing some of the problems that we allowed to be created on our watch. That's it.
And so our other candidate, who will be elected with 1 vote at a minimum, is Amanda Robertson.
Thanks, Vicki. Gosh, I don't know how to follow that, Karen. That was wonderful. Thank you. That's helpful.
What led you to decide to run for the Board of Commissioners?
Oh, that's a great question. I've been fighting really for the environment for pretty much 13 years since I moved here. Really first with Chatham Park, looking at the master plan and realized how under threat we are. One of the biggest reasons I moved here was because of the beauty, the people, the community that we have. And a lot of people talk about the rural character, and some people laugh thinking that's just kind of cheesy, but we know what we're talking about when we say that. I think that's a really meaningful couple of words right there when we speak about that. And so we didn't do so well fighting to improve the Chatham Park master plan. But one of the things that it did for me was it drove me to really fight for the environment going forward. So I've done a lot of work educating myself, worked with Al Gore's Climate Reality Program, served on NC Climate Solutions Coalition, helped form the Climate Change Advisory Committee for the county, and I served on vice chair there, and then served on several other committees, the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee and the Planning Board right now. It's important to get involved. And I think one of the things that this community does is they step up, they get involved. I was in an event just last night that asked Chatham citizens to please come out and add your ideas and your thoughts to address this region's climate action plan. And so many people came out. The people that hosted it said, we're probably going to have the greatest turnout based on the people that signed up. That's including Wake and Durham and Franklin and all these regional counties. So I think it's really a combination of trying to do my part and step up, but it's the community that I've grown to love very much and to serve. And so I want to continue to do that. I think I can do it in the most meaningful way, working with our current commissioners to try and keep making sure we have the best schools, we protect the environment, and we do all the things we can to protect our community.
Next question, speak louder and why.
Okay, we're having trouble with the questions, so I'm going to speak loudly and slowly. What, if anything, do you worry about as you prepare to join the Board of Commissioners?
I think mostly I know I've still got a lot to learn. I've got so much to learn. Oh my goodness. I mean, I've tried my best to learn and grow as much as I can. And, you know, I decided about a year ago that it was time. I knew that Mike Dasher at that time was not planning to run again. I'm in his district. I helped get him elected. I worked to get Karen elected, and pretty much all of our commissioners that are on there, I worked to get elected. But the seat came open. And as I thought more about where I am in my life and what I want to do with the time right now, the timing is perfect for the needs that Chatham County has. We've got a lot of big needs. We're growing like crazy here. We need to protect our schools in a huge way. And that matters a lot. I saw we've got an event coming up here, so I hope to attend that. But I think that's the thing. The timing is perfect. Do I know it all? No. I plan to learn as much as I can, and I'm going to hopefully learn from you all and from Karen and our other commissioners. So thank you.
And what gives you hope for the future of our community and our country? And you can't say views.
No, but that's true. But mine really is the community here. Mine is the community. And I've kind of said that already a little bit, but I think it is our community. It's all of the people here. And I'm counting on the youth to come up and really step in those shoes. We've got an older community here. And I think the way Chatham Park is growing, they're targeting, you know, continuing to grow an older community. And hopefully we will all continue to participate, and our new community will continue to participate. The people that are moving here will continue to participate. And if we all do continue to contribute and add, you know, the value to being a part of this community, I think we'll be fine. I think we will grow. I think we'll protect our environment. We'll protect our schools. We will provide good housing and opportunities for working families and for those that really struggle just to get by. And I know that's a priority of our current board, and it's a priority for me too. So I think it's the community. Thank you.
Now we're turning to our district court judges. And again, these people are friends and they're not running against each other. So these are going to be in alphabetical order because I had to structure it somehow. Judge Joel Brown is going to go first. And because everything has been so happy up until now, what has been the most frustrating aspect of your work as a district court judge?
Oh, my goodness. So I would have to say the lack of resources for people that cannot afford mental health care. And to do it consistently with regards to drug and alcohol and mental health treatment. Having long-term services. And I'm shorter than everybody else. That has been very frustrating because the state does not provide enough funding in order to have drug and alcohol and mental health treatment to can't afford it, who lack insurance. So that's been the most frustrating because of course, if you have an alcohol or drug problem or mental health problem, then sometimes you are brought into the court system because of your behaviors, which are caused by your alcohol and drug problems. And and I think the Chatham County and Orange County do the best that they can with regards to their budgets, but there needs to be a more long-term and more funding into mental health and drug and alcohol treatment.
What is the most gratifying aspect of your work?
I think the most gratifying work that I do is making sure that even if you're in the criminal justice system, that there's a way for us to put together services. So for example, I have to applaud Chatham County. One of the things they do is they provide a counselor for the community college help under people who are underemployed. And that person is in the courtroom with you for non-support. And also the provision of free education for people who don't have enough money or lack education in order to get a job so that they can support their children. And so it's very important to give people a way out of where they are and not just say, oh, they're bad people and they're not providing for their children. And so that is one of the ways that you can fashion a judgment and an order that if people are willing to do, and there are a lot of people who have taken that opportunity who are now working and are not in court anymore, and they're taking care of their children. And so that's very gratifying.
And the universal question, what gives you hope for the future of our community?
So I still have hope because there's still out there that believe in democracy like I believe in democracy, that believe in constitutional rights that like I believe in constitutional rights, the right to choose to handle your own health care the way you want to if you are a woman and you got a set of ovaries. People, middle-aged people, and more seasoned people still believe in democracy, and people, as you coming here, believe in democracy and will work for democracy until you take your last breath. And I appreciate that. And so that's what continues to give me hope. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, our next judge is Sherry Morrell.
Evening.
So first question, Lisa, folks don't know what the questions are. What, if anything, has been the role of money in your elections as a judge?
For me personally, it has been fairly small. I'm running for my third term now, and this term I'm running unopposed, and my last term I was running unopposed. Friendly challenge probably that has occurred in Orange and Chatham counties. So I had to raise some money because my challenger remained on the ballot, although he expressed a wish to not remain on the ballot, but too late for him to get off the ballot. I mean, the person I challenged, but so for me personally, very little. However, I will say that I think in the last 10 to 20 years, money has become more and more important in judicial races. And probably in the last 8 years or so, even more so when the races were made partisan again. When I first started practicing law, very shortly after that, judicial races were made nonpartisan races, which to me made a great deal of sense. And sadly, the legislature saw fit to make these races partisan again back in, I think that became effective in 2017, the same year that I started to serve. So I think that has really politicized these races in a way that they don't need to be politicized. and been especially in the statewide races, meant that candidates really have to raise a lot more money than they used to have to raise.
What either surprised you or happily surprised you, your choice, about being a district court judge?
I think what has happily surprised me is the just enormous cross-section of people that we come in contact with every day and that we have the ability to impact and with our treat people in court. And I think that that has really been the happiest surprise. I like so I find very interesting, and I think
Please have the microphone. And what gives you hope for the future of our community and our country?
well, now that the taken, I'm gonna say that this really does give me hope. Well, first of all, being in places like this, where I see people who care about democracy and the issues showing up and being in the spaces that we were all in, or many of us were in over MLK weekend, we saw so much joy and also so much resilience. I also, educators give me a great deal of hope, particularly public school system educators who devote their lives to our kids who are in schools. And that is not an easy place to be and not an easy task right now, but I'm particularly grateful for the educators in Chatham County.
And finally, Judge Hathaway Pendergrass. Yeah.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Hathaway Pendergrass, and I have been fortunate to have been a district court judge in this wonderful district since 2020. I was appointed by Governor Cooper in July of 2020, and I've been serving since then. When I first came here in 2020, I had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. So you do the math, they're now 8 and 5. My wife's a teacher at Carolina Friends School, and I love being here every time I come back. Thank you for having me. I can't wait for the questions.
Okay. What, if anything, is the influence of public opinion on your decisions?
As it should be in our courtroom, it doesn't have any, and it shouldn't have any. To be able to judiciously do our job, we hear things, of course. We live in a small community. Our district is Chatham and Orange, right? So we have 4 courthouses. We're in Siler City again. We were in Pittsburgh and Chapel Hill and Hillsborough. And while that is a large district, by the mileage wise, it takes me an hour to get from Hillsborough to Siler City. It's still a very small community. So we know things that are going on and we can feel opinions, certainly, and we get a lot of pressure. No one ever calls me or calls our office or does that to either one of us. But nonetheless, similar to taking that hat off when we go in the courtroom as to we don't know what party anyone is, we can't let any public opinion sway us. We have to apply the rules in the Constitution and the statutes and the case law as we've been tasked with doing. It's exactly what's on my wall that says I'm supposed to do, and I'm going to continue to uphold that.
And what do you wish people understood better about the judicial system?
The work that we do in district court, about 95% of the work that comes through the doors comes through us. Our wonderful Superior Court judges, Judge Bedour and Judge Grime, we joke with them that they don't do as much as we do because the volume is just higher for us. And so we see a lot of stuff, and we are so busy every day with, I finished my last DWI trial this afternoon at 4 o'clock, civil custody trial. Judge Merle, I think, had civil as well today. And so we are so busy, but we concentrate in this district on every single case that comes before us, every single person, because the thing that we've talked about, all five of us, and you might not be surprised as you see us before, all five of us judges, the three of us here, Judge Cave and Judge Roper, the five of us really actually are friends. We get coffee, lunch, grab some beers together as well. We do a lot of fellowship together. And all of our messages together are meeting people where they are when they come to the courtroom. And you have to do that one at a time. You cannot just say, maybe every fourth person that comes in will do that. No, it is one-on-one, every single person, because you can make such a change with every single individual.
The universal question, which might arc by heart, what gives you hope for the future of our community and our country?
It's the individual spirit that I see from each person, and then the support of others, especially in our courtroom. I'll give you some examples. In Orange County specifically, I'm the judge who runs our recovery courts if you're there for because you have a criminal charge, or if you have a DSS case and you've had a referral. And that's people who have substance use disorders. And watching people and our participants navigate that roller coaster. Fentanyl and heroin is killing our community members. And watching that day-to-day battle of the opioid crisis that's going on in our district, and watching the support that community members, and you don't even know that you're doing that necessarily, and supporting with tax dollars and supporting certain causes, and supporting the court system and supporting us and giving us that feeling of keep pushing to support our participants. It allows us to believe in them, and then also for them to send that right back to us. Because you see somebody who might have 1 day of substance-free time, and that's similar to them having 300 days. And then you have somebody who has 450 days. You just watch their journeys, and it is so inspiring. And one of the last things I'll say is just the hope of just the belief that we can have in one another it's life-altering change that you can make for someone. We had someone today in Chapel Hill Court who came with us with, I think, 7 tickets from over a decade ago. And this gentleman's his license has been suspended for over a decade, and he was the only sole provider in his family, taking care of a disabled son who was 20, and a number of other individuals. And today, with the agreement of the state and defense, we struck all the monies that were due in that case, and that saved that gentleman over $2,000. That money it's going to be life-changing for him. And I only give that as an example because that happens every day in our courtroom. Not that number, but the impact of one thing that can be a changing, whether it's connecting people with services like Judge Brown talks about with mental health care, or substance use care, or reuniting families in DSS court, or just having that conversation with letting people tell their stories in court. It's very important that everybody feels heard, even if they don't agree with us. And that's half the people don't agree with us when we're up there. But the idea that they can feel heard, I love it.
Great, thank you. You can see why I was so excited about having all these candidates, not because they're running against anybody, but because they are our safety net and we are theirs. So this is who's going to pass the microphone around. Please ask questions.
Have you started to receive funds from the various opioid settlements that we keep hearing about? And if so, how are they being used?
I can give. So in Chatham, we set up the sheriff's opioid task force, and some of the funds that are coming in for opioid treatment are largely being distributed according to the input from that group. And it includes the courts, DSS, the sheriffs, and all of our partners who are in that, operating in that space. And so we're not, the politicians aren't expending the funds, but we have approved the plan for how the funds would be distributed. So I can't tell you there specifically. There's a couple of positions that are being funded. There are funds going to particular court programs. But we do, the plan is available online. You can go on to the sheriff's, I can't remember the name of it, the Sheriff's Opioid Task Force, I think it's called, or Opioid Working Group, and the plan is available. And the plan was approved by the state. You know, we had to go through all of these legal hoops to make sure that we were expending it in the appropriate way. And I will say, I've been very impressed with some of how those funds are being expended, because they really are an attempt to first humanize people that are struggling with addiction, and bring resources into families to try to mitigate the impacts without judgment, right? Yeah, some people do some really bad things when they're on drugs, but that's the intention of this, is to try to sort of, bring people back into the fold, and then find ways that we can understand all of the underlying traumas, all of the causes, all of the things that bring people into drug abuse and addiction.
Any one of you that would care to comment, offer an opinion on the quality of the pool of public defenders that are assigned to people who don't have their own attorneys?
I'll take it, because these were two former public defenders, actually, and Judge Merle and Judge Brown. I will say that from we have an unbelievable collection of wonderful public defenders in this entire district. From our end, they kind of represent their own law firm, and they're a wonderful criminal defense law firm. We can't say anything higher about the public defenders that we have here and their work. So we are unbelievably fortunate to have a public defender program. There are many districts who are trying to learn even from us to figure out how do we bring a public defender to our district, because they appoint, which is great. We also have a court appointed list, but we have the public defender and their office to represent those who are indigent. And if there are conflicts, they can go to court appointed, but we are very fortunate, and they're really great attorneys. And I make it a point, one last thing. I make it a point every single time when I'm in court to recognize the public defender who's representing that person, because public sentiment, and it's on movies and TV shows, is, gosh, I got the public defender because I can't afford to get an attorney. In reality, the public defenders that we have here in our district are such great lawyers. I specifically say to them, it's great to see you today, and you're standing beside a great attorney who's doing some really good work for you. I really like to recognize them, so they feel that they've got a great representative, and they know that the court respects their attorney as well.
To add quickly to what Judge Pendergrass said, I think a lot of people do not realize what an asset a public defender's office is as a resource to the community, not just in representing individual clients. But when I was in the public defender's office, we had a very strong relationship with the private bar. There were many members of the private bar who would come and ask us questions about issues that they didn't have as much expertise about. And that sometimes worked both ways. So it's not just representing each individual client, which is hugely important, but it is a huge resource to the district or the county that has a public defender's office in terms of helping to educate and brainstorm with other criminal defense lawyers in the area.
I'm afraid it might be an inappropriate. Still. I vote Democratic.
because I'm capable of critical thinking. I'm wondering, it would give me such pleasure.
Ballot. And
I think that's really a personal decision on your part, and you can do what you think best. And it might differ from election to election, you know, depending on the dynamics of who's in what primary and who's running and that kind of thing, but I don't think we should tell you how to vote. You're not gonna vote. Let me also say one thing, which is that in the primary, if these folks did have a primary opponent, the Chatham County Democratic Party does not play favorites and doesn't endorse anyone. And the club so far has been in that, has taken that decision also. So between Democrats, that
Hi, I wanted to come and thank you. And it's said all the time that we don't really understand the importance of the judiciary. A lot of us don't, and we don't understand the importance of our wonderful county commissioners. That's also true. But I wanted to say that I have a daughter, and through her, I have a personal story about how important you all can be. My daughter, when she was 16 years old, or 18, I think she was 18, may have had an issue with an underage drinking party. Yeah, y'all are, And she went to teen court, I think it's called. Is that what it's called? Teen court, yeah, she went to teen court. She now is 26 years old. She's in a graduate program in social work. Actually, she served for 3 years as a guardian ad litem, which is the hardest thing I think I've ever seen and my kids go through. And without that experience, I shudder to think what could have happened to her, what would have, and to think y'all affected, the judiciary is important and really affected my life, my daughter's life for sure. And I like to think those two little girls she was a gal for there as well. I love teen court. Thank you.
doesn't look like there's any other questions, but I wondered if one of the judges would want to give a brief explanation of what a guardian ad litem is and put in a plug for its importance.
I was a guardian ad litem when I was in law school. The guardian ad litem that we're really talking about generally is a guardian ad litem in DSS court. And your role is to walk beside a child. And we can never have enough guardian ad litems. I would like for Judge Merle to come up here because she is the DSS judge in Chatham. I'm the DSS judge in Orange. And I will just let you know, that is the hardest court of all the courts that we do. In the way that we run, Judge Cabe is our chief. Judge Merle has the next in seniority, even though I'm the little brother to everybody else, I have third in seniority. So we get to pick what specialty courts we would go in. Judge Merle chose DSS court in Chatham County. And so the next open was DSS court. I chose to be in DSS in Orange because it has such an impact. The impact that a guardian can have, and it doesn't matter how old you are, the impact that a guardian can have on researching and working with a family and being in court for a child, there is no more important role in the judicial system. We take you so seriously. We listen to you, we read your reports, and we care about the work that you do. You can volunteer and do that, and we can put a plug in. I would love for you to put a plug in if you could for here.
You have to keep moving this microphone because there's a foot difference between us. Guardian ad litem is a critical role, what just Judge Pendergrass said is exactly right. The guardian ad litem is tasked with representing a child whose family is DSS involved. So that is the person who gives us perspective of the child and what's in the best interest of the child. And they do an enormous amount of work. Much like DSS social worker may do, they go into the home, they visit the parents, they visit the children, sometimes collaterals, sometimes which may include teachers and other people involved with the child, may include medical professionals, and they write reports. And they're trained. There is a guardian ad litem organization, and we luckily have wonderful, for lack of a better term, directors who train these folks and also come to court usually with them. The guardian ad litem has their own attorney, but the role is critical. And we can never have enough, and it is taxing. I have an aunt who was a guardian ad litem in a different district for a long time, and I can tell you, she found it to be enormously rewarding, but it's a lot of work. But I really encourage you, if you have any interest at all, to look into it because it is so necessary, and it's the one sort of pure source in DSS court we have of somebody who's looking purely, who's looking at the child first and not what's best for mom or what's best for dad or all of that, but looking first at the child. Thank you.
And the last question is going to go to the man in the hat in the back row.
Illustrate.
When you're listening to them and you're hearing their commitment to the work that they do, I want you to know that there is an army of people behind organizations and partners like the courts, DSS, the detention center that are trying to do really good work for people who are showing up on their least wonderful days. And it is I have had the privilege of sitting hearing some of the things, the resources that are offered to people, and realizing how transformed, as a dad coming in and he owes back child support, but isn't working, and the compassion with which that situation is met. That is so human. We are so lucky to have, I'm sorry that judges have to be elected. And I'm sorry that it's partisan, but really you have an army of people working behind the scenes day after day, keeping this system uplifted and serving individuals really well. We know that we have problems in DSS. There is right now a state level conversation going on, and I have the privilege of chairing part of that conversation around where do we put children with difficult diagnoses who cannot stay in DSS, right? They are under DSS care, but there is no placement for them. And they are sitting in DSS offices. They're sitting in detention center offices, right? Not in the center. They're sitting in hotels. They are finding themselves in the most difficult places. And there are people across this state working diligently to address that need and to change it and to, open up hearts and minds so that more people will take on these really challenging children, increase the funding so that families are more inclined to take back a child who has a really, some of the kids have had criminal diagnoses, they have mental health diagnoses, they might have multiple challenges. For a family to be able to make the decision to let one parent stay home, we really need to have compassion at the state level to say, how about paying a parent to stay home? rather than putting a child in care and bumping them back and forth and then putting them out at 18. And so I want you to know this direct them into resources so that we don't end up seeing these kids now their worst over and over again. So thank you.
Yeah. Exactly. And empowered. That puts us, it is so. And you'll find something else to do, which includes working for the Chatham County Democratic Party or many, many, many other nonprofits that can benefit from our energy, as well as thinking about learning more about being a guardian ad litem. So let's close for tonight and thank everybody so much for coming.